Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Vanessa Ngakeng. Dr. Ngagenk is an ophthalmologist specializing in diseases and conditions involving the cornea and corneal injuries. She performs refractive corneal procedures, including LASIK, and is a highly experienced cataract surgeon offering advanced implant lenses for the correction of presbyopia and astigmatism. She received her medical degree from the Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA Charles R. Drew University and completed her residency in ophthalmology at the Howard University Medical Center Department of Ophthalmology. Dr. Ngagenk completed a corneal refractive fellowship at Corneal Consultants of Indiana Price Vision Group. She has been recognized, and she's received the Charles R. Drew University Medicine and Sciences Ophthalmology Award, Howard University Achievement Award, and the Outstanding Surgical Intern of the Year Award from California Hospital, Los Angeles. She has authored and published numerous articles and participated in several medical studies. Her medical and professional experiences have been greatly enhanced by her love for international travel. It has provided her with a keen understanding of people, their needs, cultures, and backgrounds. She is fluent in English, Spanish, and French. She is an active church member and an active tennis player. Welcome, Dr. Ngagenk.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Dr. Linert. How's it going?
It's going great. And you have, just in your biography here, you have a vast amount of experience and knowledge. So we just love to hear a little bit about you. Like, where did you start out? Where did you grow up? How did you get to where you are today?
That's a cool question because I actually feel like my life has been blessed up to now. I was born in Europe, and the reason I was born in Europe is because my parents were actually going to school in Europe. My mother was getting her bachelor's degree, and my dad was getting his PhD. So they met while they were in school, had me. We went back to Cameroon, which is where I'm from originally. And I had a pretty nice life. So I was blessed to have both parents who were educated and who thought education was important. The other blessing for me is the fact that I feel like I always knew I was going to be a doctor. So it wasn't one of those things where I had to search and get to school and decide what I was going to do. I always knew what I was going to do. Either that or I was going to do international business. Those were my two passions. In Cameroon, it's pretty common for parents to send their kids overseas. So at some point after middle school, my parents went ahead and sent me to France to boarding school to finish my education. And the goal was for me to go to medical school in France. I had family members here in the US, and they offered me the opportunity to come here to the US. So I came here after high school, went to undergrad, grad school, as well as medical school in LA, and had a blast while that happened. And as you said, residency in DC, fellowship in Indiana. Cool thing with that is that I got to really travel the US. From the East Coast, from the West Coast to the East Coast to the Midwest, and now I'm here in Atlanta in the South. So I feel like I know a little bit about the different facets, and it's amazing how different sides of the U.S. are. And that's where I am. So I've been here in Atlanta for about 5 years with the same practice, growing, loving Atlanta, and that's basically a quick resume of my professional career.
Yes, so why don't you explain to people actually what you do? Because sometimes when you say ophthalmologist, people aren't even sure what is that. So why don't you explain what you do and the people you work with?
Okay, so in medical school, one of the beauties in medical school is that you get to experience a lot of different specialties. And there's actually so much out there that unless you are lucky, you actually don't even know it exists. I always knew I was going to be a surgeon because that was my personality. And originally I was going to be a trauma surgeon because I loved the rush. I remember training in LA, when we had a lot of gangs, and the Friday nights and Saturday nights, basically we would have unfortunately, so many people who were shot, and the trauma base would just open, and you would just start having to put tubes in people and start surgery in the ER or in the trauma bay, and then taking them to the surgery suite. And that was a lot of rush. But decided that, hey, that was going to be really cool. But I remember one day I was in the hospital, and one of my attendings was watching the Lakers game. It was one of the hospital where I got the surgery. Resident of the year was right by the Staples Center, and the Lakers were playing it, and our attending was at the game. And that one, it was a car accident, and he had to leave the game. And I said, you know what? I don't know. I'm not sure that I want that lifestyle where every second something can happen, and then you have to leave whatever it is that you're doing, and you have to be there. So decided to look at other specialties. And for people who watch Grey's Anatomy, it's so sad for me to say, but I fell into ophthalmology just lucky happenstance. Somebody said, hey, why don't you try it? And the people in ophthalmology were just so proper, like no hair out of place. The buttons were exactly where they were supposed to be. I remember coming from a rotation where I was doing surgery for 23 hours straight, standing straight. And in ophthalmology, we do our surgeries sitting down. And I felt like we also had more time with our patient, and you develop much more of a rapport versus general surgery or some of the other surgical specialties where it seemed like, hey, the people came, something was broken, you fixed it, and the people were gone. So I fell in love with ophthalmology. And basically what we do in ophthalmology is take care of people's eyes. So I tell people, it's like, hey, I went to medical school for 4 years, and all I do is this little balls that we have, these two little balls that we have, and I forgot everything else about the human body. And that's basically what I do. I'm anterior segment specialist, and as small as the eye is, we have 6 or 7 subspecialties within the eye. So I do a lot of cataract surgery, which is the number one thing I do. I'll also I'm a cornea specialist, so I'll do transplants. So when people have issues with the cornea, which is the front part of the eye, I'll take care of those issues. And stuff that people are also familiar with would be LASIK, taking care of people who no longer want to wear glasses. So that's basically my bread and butter. And I have to say that I am very, very blessed to have found a specialty.
Yes. Wow. You went through quite a journey, and it when you talked about, working in the surgery, that does sound like it would be quite a rush, coming in doing that.
It was. Like I remember my first surgery day, I think I had been up for probably 40 something hours in residency, and I almost passed out. But I also remember those other cases where you just have people who come in that are so critical, and you just have to be there for them. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, for me, not for the patient, because obviously for them to go to surgery, they're not doing well. It was a lot of fun, a lot of rush. But if you think about it long term, at least for me, not for everyone, it could be stressful 5, 10, 20 years down the line, where you may want to slow down a little bit. Because, hey, father time happens to all of us at some point, or every day, I should say.
Yes, and I know I'm an optometrist, and one of the reasons I chose optometry is because my neighbor growing up was an OBGYN, and he was always rushing out at all hours to deliver babies, and he always looked tired, and he was kind of crabby sometimes because he was so tired. He's just tired all the time. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, I don't want to be tired all the time. And what if I have children and I have to rush out in the middle of the night? If because I was thinking about becoming a physician, and so I decided that optometry would be a really great place to be, because then I wouldn't have to be rushing out in the middle of the night. So
I agree. My neighbor, I have a neighbor now who is an OBGYN, and she still has the same complaint, and they have to make some changes, and they are making some changes. But yeah, people get burned out. And medicine, there is a huge amount of burnout in different specialties, not only because of some of what you just said, people are just busy, but you also have all the regulation, all the stuff that happens with patient and paperwork. And a lot of people are quitting, and that's the sad part. And for me, that's the blessing of have had a chance to choose ophthalmology and do ophthalmology, because this is still a super, very, very fulfilling profession for me. But I totally see how, yes, if I had to be up at 2 to go take care of patients like 3, 4 times a week, um, and yeah, either issues with reimbursement or paperwork or insurances every day that you'd have to deal with, I could see how that could take a toll on people.
Yes. And what are your thoughts on your personal life versus your professional life?
And that's continuation of just that same thing. It's sad for me to see so many people who have gone to school for so long who now want to give it up. And being a physician for me is part of who I am. It's a little bit like if somebody were to cut an arm for me. I mean, being a doctor is who I am. It's not just what I do. And not being able to do this would kill me. On a personal life, one of the things that I tell people these days is that, hey, to become a physician or anything that takes time and dedication in life, we all sit there as kids or college students and plan and say, hey, I have to take calculus 1, then calculus 2, and then whatever the next classes are so that we can attain our goal. And sometimes people don't plan their personal life the same way. And as much as being a physician is a huge part of who you are as a person, or whatever it is that you do, the personal life, being either married or not married, whatever it is that fulfills you personally, takes equal weight or even more weight. And I feel like we sometimes don't plan as much. And I was uh, at fault for that. And so one of the things that now when I mentor younger people is to tell them that, hey, as much as you want to, usually I mentor people who want to become physicians, as much as you want to become physician, it is very important for you to also think about, hey, if your marriage is important to you, think about you have to work on that, and you also have to almost put as much work into that as what you have to do when it comes to going to professional school. Um, for women, especially, that's especially true because obviously life is what it is. It's a little bit easier for men to be able to find a wife at some point, but for us, we do have a clock. And again, that's something that I didn't think about until very late. So one of the things that I tell my mentees is, hey, if you don't think you want to be married anytime soon, or if you want or don't want to have kids, or you don't have someone to have a kid with, because it's obviously easier to have a kid with someone than on your own, but you can do it on your own, but it's easier if you have someone. One of my big points now is to tell women to freeze the eggs early. I tell them, hey, go ahead and freeze your eggs because it gives you choices, so you don't feel the pressure of feeling like you have to marry next Joe Blow, or you have to do something that's not in your best interest because you feel the pressure of the biological clock. So those are the two big things that I tell people. It's like school is important, but personal life is also important. So you have to plan for it. And for the women, make sure that you freeze your eggs now. So
Yes.
those are big things for me.
And I think that's a huge problem for a lot of professional women, especially if they have a really long schooling or apprenticeship, or anything where it takes a long time and to get established in a career, that
Mm-hmm.
you can easily do that and then turn around and look back and say, oh, all these years have gone by, and now I want to have a family, and I'm not even married, or you know, yeah, it would put pressure in with the divorce rate, in at least in this country. um, I think people are choosing the wrong people quite often because they end up in divorce. So that's a lot of pressure, and I think that's great advice for people. And the other thing that I think is important too is, um, I know I was very driven as a younger person, and sometimes the things that I really love to do, like art or different things, they just kind of got pushed to the side, because I was so driven to build a practice and be there late hours. So how important is it for people to actually have that outlet? 'Cause I know you're a tennis player, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the kind of things you like to do when you're not being a doctor?
And I agree with you when it comes to your art and having an outlet. For me, as you mentioned, I played tennis. I was good enough to have a full scholarship in undergrad, so I didn't have any undergrad loans, and that was great. And for me also, because I came here after high school, my English wasn't the best, and tennis really was an outlet for me, and it helped me in undergrad, just being able to be there, say, hey, I'm going to do biology, I want to go to medical school, but my English is not all that, but I know I still have to have the grades to be able to go to med school. And being on the tennis team was very helpful because it also created an inbuilt friendship with me not having to try too hard to go find people in a new country. So that was great for me. Medical school was too difficult for me to play tennis. I did some other stuff like capoeira, which is martial art that wasn't for me, wasn't as demanding. It's in a gym. We did it in a gym, so I don't have to reserve courts, and it was a certain time slot, so I didn't have to go reserve court, have to find partners. I just took this class for a few years. And same thing during residency, I just didn't have the time. But once I finished, I started playing tennis again, and that was a really good outlet. Even moving here to Atlanta, Atlanta is huge when it comes to tennis, and that allowed me to create a group of people or meet a group of people without having to try too hard who had common interests. At some point, a couple years ago, I got really sick, but tennis is one of those things, and working out in general for me is one of those things that just increase my endorphin and just makes me feel better. So even though I wasn't able to compete at the same level as I would in the past, just being out there talking to usually this group of women, because I was competing against women, and as I did mixed doubles, talking to this group of women and just hanging out with these people who were your friend, that just really helped out. So to me, it doesn't matter how bad or how good my life is going. Tennis is one of those things that just helps me focus, makes me feel happier. Working out in general does that for me. Tennis also because I like competing. So even now, pregnant at 8 months, I'm out there as long as the OB tells me that I can. I'm out there competing as long as I can, just because it's just such a fun thing for me to do. So that's the big thing that I do. Another thing that I do a lot of is reading. I love reading. So I have, like most people, like a Kindle app, and I have unlimited on Amazon. So I just read a couple hundred books a year, and that's one of the things that I do.
That is awesome. Did I hear you say that you're pregnant now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, congratulations.
That's one of those things that those ladies to do it earlier. I'm doing it way late,
Uh-huh.
but that's because I didn't plan it the way it was supposed to. My mom told me, and I wish I had listened, but I didn't. But I'm just glad, I'm blessed that I'm able to do it
Hmm.
now. Mhm.
Yeah. And so probably not so much now, but you have done traveling uh, with your work, and I think you mentioned something in your bio about doing volunteering. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so in terms of traveling, I like traveling in general. We started traveling as a family very young. So that was a privilege that we were afforded, and I'm blessed to have had, and know that you learn so much from traveling. Uh, did volunteer work for medical school, going to different countries, and seeing how other people live and trying to give back some of the stuff that you've learned. So I've done some volunteer work with either primary care, ophthalmology, like there in South America. I'm originally from Cameroon. So go back to Cameroon and do some work there. And then when I don't have time, what I do is I try to send medical supply once or twice a year. We have organizations that basically ship barrels or containers. So I just collect medical supply throughout the year. And then when I have enough for a couple of barrels, excuse me, I just basically send them home, do some lectures with some of the different hospitals. So those are the kind of stuff that I do. Ultimately, the goal would be to either open up a clinic, but more likely just partner up with a clinic and go twice a year just to make sure that I can operate twice a year with the help of some pharmaceutical company or surgical company. And that's the goal, so that is more regular compared to what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talked in your bio about being an avid churchgoer. How is your faith integrate with your life?
I don't know that I would say that I'm an avid church goer.
Oh, active. I
Um,
think you said active, not avid. Got that mixed up. Active.
I I for me, I always say if you're a physician, I don't know how you can believe in God because the human body is so amazing.
Uh-huh.
So even yesterday, I was talking with the students, and one of the other doctor had a case of a lady who shows up and who says, "Oh, my eye is kind of itchy," and this person had had a corneal transplant elsewhere. Obviously was lost to follow up, showed up, and her eye was open and her lens was outside of the eye.
Oh.
And it's so interesting. I was like, dude, I'm surprised she hasn't lost the eye. And I'm surprised she's not in a lot of pain. So they took her to the OR and just did another corneal transplant. So it's so amazing. And I'm like, how do you think that this is just evolution? So human body is amazing. I know I've been blessed. One of the things, for example, when I talk to my patients is I tell my patient, hey, I think I'm a great surgeon. I actually know that I'm a great surgeon, and that's not being cocky. That's just stating the facts for me. But I tell them the only person who does not have complication is God. So when I do my consent form, I tell them, with every surgery you have risks, chances of anything bad happening very, very low. But the only, like as good as I am, unfortunately, sometimes some stuff may happen. The only person who doesn't is a surgeon who stopped operating a God, and nobody pretends to be God. So that's one of those things that I know that God is out there. God is, at least for me, protecting me,
Mhm.
helping me see the beauty of life, helping me see the grace of what I've had and all that stuff. So I'm just blessed. I'm happy. I'm thankful.
Awesome. And you've mentioned several times about working with younger surgeons and mentoring them. Tell me more about that.
So it's not just surgeons. I actually also work with a lot of optometry students.
Mm-hmm.
So I just work with different organizations, either the AAO, which is the American Academy of Ophthalmology. I also work with the National Medical Association, and we also work with optometry residents as well. And those are actually the ones that I have more contact with, would be the optometry students or residents. And basically, they come to clinic every week. We make sure that they understand the disease processes and how to treat those diseases. And instead of just talking about medicine, I try to also stop and talk about other stuff. So on Tuesday, for example, I had one resident, one student, and I said, we started talking about a cell phone, and I said, what phone is that? She was like, oh, that's the iPhone 10. And I was like, oh, how much money did you spend to get that? She was like, $1,000. I was like, that's the stupidest thing. I was like, you can't spend that much money on a phone. I said, I still have the Samsung 6. And I said, what is it that your phone does that my phone doesn't do? And I was like, the fact that it's taking like 18 megapixel picture versus 12, really, who cares unless you maybe into digital media?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did at lunch was I went over Roth IRA and savings. So we try to talk about a little bit of everything, and you take what life throws at you, and if there's a lesson there, then you try to teach the lesson that you learned. Because I wish that's a lesson that I wish, in terms of savings, maybe I had understood earlier. My parents were really good savers, so I understood the action of savings. But we saved and just put the money in the bank. There's different level to this. It's like it's not just about putting the money in the bank. There's also the thing where you have to actually have a retirement account. It's like you have to have a brokerage account, all those things. So had I known that earlier, I would have started those things earlier. And so I try to pass that kind of stuff to them. To me, it's just a joy to be able to tell people, hey, this is what I've learned. You don't have to do exactly like me, but this is a lesson that happened to me. And if you can learn from my mistake or my triumph, go ahead and get it, because I want you to be successful. I want you to do well. And if you're working this hard, you don't want to just do well in one area of your life. You want to try to do well in as many areas as you can.
Yes. Yes. So, was there a time in your journey when you experienced an aha moment, a moment of sudden insight or discovery?
Uh, that one is an interesting question. Probably when I became a good surgeon. It takes a little bit of time. And I remember in residency, I couldn't figure out why it was taking me a little bit of time to figure out cataract surgery. And I didn't realize that I didn't have stuff, I wasn't focused well enough. So things were actually hazy during my surgery. And so that was so crazy. I remember starting surgery, doing surgeries that now maybe take me 10 minutes or less, that used to take me 30, 40 minutes to do. So it's so rewarding to be able to figure out the steps so that you can become a better surgeon. Um, those kind of moments would be, um, I think those would be the aha for me. It was like, wow, I figured it out. I now realize how I can make this step better so I can be a better surgeon doing this thing.
Mhm. And if we could just go back to kind of basics, I know a lot of people that, I will refer the patient to you when they need like cataract surgery. And um, cataract surgery overall is a pretty, actually quick, you know, surgery that doesn't have so many side effects like some other surgeries can have. Yet a lot of times the patients are quite anxious about having surgery on their eyes. So maybe you can explain a little bit about cataract surgery and how it works, and um, why people shouldn't be worried about it if they do need it.
Okay, cataract surgery. So let's talk about cataracts first.
Okay.
So all of us eventually get cataracts. Some of us are born with it, but really we're gonna say 99% of people experience cataract a little bit later in life, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and so on. My oldest patient is 103 that I operated on. And what happens is that your lens, which is behind the colored part of your eye, becomes cloudy. And when it becomes cloudy, then your vision goes down. And whenever your vision is down enough for you as a patient, the surgeon doesn't decide when to do the surgery. Very rarely is a cataract an emergency, but we do it whenever your vision bothers you. So when that happens, we go ahead and remove that cloudy lens and put an artificial lens in. Like you said, the surgery is pretty quick, usually around 10 minutes, and patients see pretty well within a few days. Um, but I tell people that it's still surgery. So it's not that I don't want you to not be concerned, because anytime we do surgery, unfortunately, things can happen. Obviously, I tell the patient that for negative complications to happen is very, very rare. But at the same time, they have to know that things can happen. So I don't try to tell, yeah, I know that it is a short procedure, but our eyes are so important. Um, it is still surgery. It is still surgery. The other things to know about cataract surgery now is that when we do cataract surgery, like everything else in life, people have options. There are some options that are going to be covered by insurance if for somebody who has insurance, and there are some options that are called upgrades that are not covered by insurance. Some of them allow them not to wear glasses 90% of the time, so somebody cannot depend on glasses. Some people, it doesn't matter what they do, they're going to have to wear glasses depending on what other diseases they have in the eye. But most of the time, the patients are going to do really, really well after cataract surgery. So yeah, it's a really rewarding surgery. It's a really rewarding profession for that reason, because 99% of our patients are going to be very happy.
Yes, and I found that to be true when they come back to me after their surgery for follow-ups, that people
Mm-hmm.
are actually usually quite excited about how well they see.
Correct.
So yes.
And just to cut you off there really quick, sorry. Some patients, this is the best they've seen their entire lives, because one of the things that some people wore glasses their entire lives and now they have cataract surgery and they may not need anything. So they go from, hey, even when I was 20, yes, with the glasses I could see well, but I always had to have glasses or contacts to see well. And now I'm 70 and look at that. Yeah, I don't have to have glasses and I have
Yeah.
great vision. Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. So, and then you also work with, people who don't have cataracts, but they don't want to wear glasses. What are some of the options for them?
For people who don't have cataracts and don't want to wear glasses, if you are less than 45, 50, we usually talking about LASIK, PRK, so some type of laser procedure, so that we use a laser to reshape the front of the eye, and that removes the prescription that they have in the eye. The other option for someone who has an extreme prescription would be to implant something called an ICL, which would be like an implantable contact lens inside the eye. So that's another option. Usually after 50, because most of us will have a little bit of cataract, at that point, we're going to talk about refractive lensectomy, which is basically the same thing as cataract surgery, but your cataract doesn't meet insurance requirement. So at that point, that procedure is a cosmetic procedure, which means that all of it would be out of pocket. So those would be the big procedures that we're talking about. We're talking about LASIK, PRK, which are the laser procedures, then the implantable contact lens, which is really Collamer lens. That's really the correct word. So those would be for our less than 50 patient. And for our over 50 patients, we're talking about something called refractive lensectomy, where we take the lens out and put an artificial lens in.
Right. So, just switching gears here, what in your life right now gives you the most joy and fulfillment?
That's a hard one. I don't know that I have one. I think I'm blessed at this point. All the facets of my life, I think it's a combination. I don't think I would be as happy without having an amazing spouse who is really supportive. The fact that we finally able to get pregnant, and the fact that I do what God made for me to do on this earth. So those three in combination just basically make me a happy person.
Yes, yes, and very happy. And you're going to have another person in your life very soon.
Yes.
I can't even describe the amazing happiness that comes when a little one comes into the world.
Everybody keeps telling me.
Yes. Oh, it changes your life.
Mhm.
Just changes your life. So it's just awesome.
Mhm.
Um, so if people wanted to come see you, you're here in the Atlanta area. If people wanted to come see you for cataract surgery or for refractive surgery, how would they contact you, and where's your practice located?
My practice is on the south side of Atlanta. I am probably it will be changing soon. So the easiest thing at this point to find me would be to go to my website, which is vanessangakengmd.com. So Vanessa, Vanessa, my last name, Ngakeng, which is NGAKENG, and information would just be posted there as to where I am. Or the other thing would just be to Google /Bing/Yahoo my name to try to figure out where I am.
Yes, we can be found everywhere these days.
Yes. Yeah, you can't hide anymore.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ngakeng, for being on the podcast today and sharing your life and in just inspiring people, and for the amazing surgery and service you're doing for people.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Linert, for inviting me and sharing your platform with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll talk to you again soon.
Talk to you. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.